Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I want to go into a topic that has been discussed a lot, but I want to take a different angle with this. A lot of times, and this is just my observation in looking at videos and looking at live streams and looking at whenever anybody gets into one of these kinds of topics, they tend to skirt around the details and they settle for well, that's just what SJWs do, or that's just what the alt-right does, or they get into just this summary. And as much as we like to believe certain things about human behavior is important. If we understand a bit more why people are doing the things that they do, as opposed to just writing it off as they're crazy, they're stupid, they're evil. I mean, this is the big problem. And just from 20 seconds on this, I promise, one of the big mistakes that the Democrats are making and will continue to make is that they're too quick to write off the people who voted for Trump as all hateful people, neglecting the fact that there was a massive amount of people who voted, and they need to understand why. And if they're willing to settle for just the answer of, oh, well, they're all just racist, they're missing massive reasons why. And those reasons, missing those, means they're going to make mistakes. They're going to have bad strategy moving forward. You've got to get to the root of why people believe the way they are, not just settle on surface things. I bring that up, but by the way, the left does it, the right does it. People are way too quick at just writing things off, like, oh, I don't think you're getting it. It's the laziness that we see out of a generation now using Twitter and having their arguments in 270 characters. It's not that simple. I always laugh when people like to come into the comments like, oh, Perch, you're too naive. You just don't understand that people are evil. It's like that. I'm sorry that you're so far behind. When you say stuff, you're just so far behind in actually trying to dig through human nature. People do things for a reason. You got to get to what that reason is. That reason is not, anyway. So I want to talk about, this is not comics, but it relates to comics completely. So there's a Firefly reboot, and there's a website, MovieWeb, and they say what to expect from the Firefly reboot from Disney Plus. Now you may go, I didn't realize they were doing a Firefly reboot, and yes, they are. Disney has the rights to Firefly. They bought the rights back in 2018 when they got Fox, and they have announced they will do Firefly on Disney Plus. It will come. We don't have a date. I think some people have thrown around 2023, but who knows really? And there's certainly a possibility it never gets off the ground, period. But this is what caught my eye in the article, and then you'll understand why it relates to comics. It says, it was a popular series, blah, 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 blah. However, Disney plans to reboot the series as an exclusive for its streaming platform for Disney Plus. Disney had acquired the rights to the franchise after their 2018 acquisition of Fox. Firefly seems like the perfect option, are you ready for it? To diversify their current lineup for streaming. Here's what to expect from the reboot. Then the article continues to go through all the ways that Firefly, in fact, the very next word is, the rebooted Firefly will have a new story. How do they know this? They don't know it, of course, but they basically speculate that the original Firefly series is intended for mature audiences. On Disney Plus, it will have to be more family friendly. And even though there was an openly gay character in Eternals and the first real sex scene, I mean, kind of. If you're calling that a sex scene, it's like, that was PG of a sex scene in Eternals. Let's not kid ourselves here. Anyway, it's unlikely Firefly will do the same. Now, these are a lot of huge guesses, given there is content, including Eternals, that will be on Disney Plus. So if we're saying, this whole thing, it will need to be rebooted and restarted on a more family-friendly note. All right, so we say that we're going for Firefly, right, which everybody loves, rebooted, but we're going to change the entire show to be family-friendly, remove all the mature audiences here. The next line is that Joss Whedon will not be involved at all in any capacity. Again, this is guesswork, but okay. And then the article goes on to mention that, hey, the majority of the cast was white, and they need to diversify the cast, perhaps putting in some LGBTQ representation, maybe some different races, maybe even having a female black captain. And so as they go through all this, by the time you get to the end of the article, you basically get to why this isn't a reboot of Firefly anymore. This is something completely different. The Firefly name, and maybe this concept that is vaguely space-like. But they do also, I mean, the article also goes on to speculate, like, maybe they could have different types of space missions and not be the same kind of show tied to Western in space. And you do get to, so what's the Firefly part of this? Completely. Now, this happens over and over and over again. And when this gets brought up, people always immediately take the right turn into this is wokeism or what, that's immediately where they go. But again, let's look into what's trying to be accomplished here. So number one, there's some of the marketing department goes, hey, Firefly has a popular fan base. We would like that fan base. Therefore, we will use the Firefly name and probably the logo and tell people we're bringing Firefly to the table. Okay, why would they want to do that? That's easy money, right? It's cheap, easy ways to get attention. If you have a show that's almost entirely different, I think they've noted that probably none of the original cast will come. Even to the point of saying, it's unlikely. And this article, again, is speculating. They're not working off actual news. But they note that Inara is, there's no way she's going to be basically a prostitute in the show because it's Disney. So what basically happens here is Disney's like, we'd like a sci-fi show. We have the Firefly brand. Let's do assuming this article is correct, let's leverage that brand while doing completely different things with a sci-fi show that frankly could be called anything. And at what point do you just say, well, why are we calling it Firefly at all? And the answer is very simple. They want to try and drag the media attention and people say, oh, it's a Firefly reboot. All more likely they're going to get press and attention and people coming to it than if they called this show Ladybug or whatever. It's as simple as that. Me personally, I always hate it when they reboot a show, but it has nothing to do with the show. Well, what is the point? But I'm somebody who's more willing to experiment with new things. I don't go and just chase brands because I'm familiar with the name. I would be lying if I didn't say other people are not that way. Many people, they go where the brands they know go, and that's where it's at. We see this with comics all the time. It's why you have a second Wolverine and a second Spider-Man and a second Hawkeye, and why they keep doing this kind of stuff. It's why we have 50 Robins. It's why we have a new Aquaman that's the same as the old Aquaman, but completely different as well. It's this desire to say, hey, we think people have vaguely heard of the name and we want all that attention and that money, but we really have a completely different vision, completely different thing that we want to go do. The real question becomes if, and nobody will do this, but if we had a little contest, and the contest was basically, all right, we're going to take, show A, Firefly in name only, but completely different, and we're going to pit it against Firefly, which is a almost shot-for-shot remake of the original show. Same characters, same personalities, everything else. Which one's going to do better? The result, we have enough data to know 9 times out of 10, the show that remakes things, the shows that stays true to the original, does better. Whether it's TV, whether it's movies, whether it's comics. It tends to do better with everyone but one group, critics. Critics will beat it up for being repetitive, being the same, not taking the opportunity to introduce more diversity, whatever that happens to be. The critics go crazy for it. And the people who work on the films or the shows or the comics tend to, go with what the critics say more than what the customer base says. And the biggest reason they do that is because in most cases, they don't make money off the customers. Their career is based off of the critics. That's a screwed up system, but think about it for a moment. If you're an independent contractor, if you're a freelancer, you're not paid on staff, You're rarely paid, real royalties off these movies and books. Sometimes in movies, people have points, and you will notice that the directors who get actual points off the movie, who get, part of the upside of what they create, they do tend to create more customer-friendly stuff. Lots of people beat up on Michael Bay, including me. I think his stuff I don't enjoy Michael Bay films. However, lots of people do. And Michael Bay is smart enough to know to keep going back to that formula because it makes millions of dollars and he gets cut of that and he's rich. He's smart. That is exactly what he should be doing. Regardless of what I think of his work, like I'd be the one going to the David Lynch film that nobody else is going to. I like David Lynch, but you would be insane if you had to put your money where it's going to have the biggest growth. Yeah, you go with Michael Bay every day. That's what you do. If you don't have the creators, the writer, the director, whoever it happens to be, if they're not aligned with the upside, then what they're going to do is they're going to cater to what they view is the upside, which is going to be the critics or their peers. Those are the people most likely to get them more work, make them feel good on social media, whatever it happens to be. This is less ideology, although ideology plays into it for sure, but it's less about ideology and it's way more about it's way more about I'm trying to think of a better way to say this, but there's not. It's about going where your bread is buttered, as the expression goes. It's where you're going to cater to the people are more likely to be around and keep working with you. Why, if you're a comic writer, for example, why would you pay attention to what customers say? Work with me here to the end of this sentence. When you're not paid based on sales, you're not really paid on that success. It doesn't matter to you. The person who's going to give you the next gig, the next paycheck, the next job is your editor who is telling you to go in this other direction. Why wouldn't you do a complete Firefly reboot with a more diverse cast? Your editor and the critics are telling you that's what they want to see. Even if in the back of your head you know that that's going to be less successful than if you did a shot-by-shot remake or whatever it happened to be, you're going to go with who's going to make you money and give you jobs in the future. That's the broken part of the system. That's, I guess, the point I'm trying to make. Firefly in general, if they're doing a reboot that's a sci-fi reboot that is completely changed on every level, I don't know what they can expect. It basically then, the legacy of the name becomes a hindrance rather than a help. People might come to it because they are expecting Firefly, but then immediately they're going to have this decision process. Either the show is good enough that it attracts them and they stick around, or the show feels like a bad imitation of what they saw before and loved, and they immediately tune out. Most of the time, the second option is what happens. Most of the time, people come in expecting one thing, they're presented with something completely different, it turns them off, they go away. That's probably what's going to happen here, but we'll see. And again, I'm just, to be honest about it, this is one article's interpretation of what's going to happen. We don't know. Disney could certainly come out the gate and Joss Whedon's in charge of it and Nathan Fillion's there, and it's all the same. This article is basically speaking as if it has inside information authority that they're completely changing everything. Will they? I don't know. But the way this article is written actually identifies a lot of the problem. The problem being, they're all in on, if the show's going to come, when the show come out, it's the perfect time to diversify the whole cast. But why? Again, I think diversity is good, but why is that the first thought that comes out? The first thought is we should change around the entire cast and we should do a completely new story. That's a weird place to jump to when we're talking about a remake, isn't it? That wouldn't be where my head was first. The first thing I would think of if I was put in charge of this would be to say, all right, well, how do we maintain the spirit and feeling and environment of the original so that the people who love the first series come back and love this too? How do we do that? That would be my very first question. I don't know where in the giant list of questions I would say, we got too many white people. I don't know where that would fit. I'm not even sure that entirely gives a lot of the cast credit here, as there wasn't just white people on the cast, but I mean, what do I know? But anyway, I'm pretty sure the writer of the article looked at this photo and didn't realize that some of the black characters are black. I just kind of I have that kind of feeling here. But anyway, what are you going to do? What's your take on this? What's your thought on it? Again, there's a lot of kind of knee-jerk reactions you can give to all this, but it's important to understand people's motivations. They don't just wake up in the morning and decide to be crazy. There's usually some reason why they're crazy. Getting to that reason is usually pretty interesting. It's for me anyway. Thanks for listening.